Good afternoon. Welcome to the final Tech Talk session of the day. I'm Dennis DePasquale from Expedient. Not sure if the rest of you were in the room earlier throughout the day, but Expedient's headquartered here in Pittsburgh, and we're a cloud provider. And a lot of interesting talks today. This one's seems very interesting. I'm a baseball guy, and I know that our team here in Pittsburgh could definitely use your tools. So might want to hit them up. But I also like the Internet of Swings pun there. So glad to have Mike Ressler, CTO of Diamond Kinetics here, and take it away, Mike.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Expedient. So Internet of Swings is definitely a term I want to make happen. So we got to hashtag Internet of Swings for this. Since we've now launched, so we're a baseball and softball sports motion analysis company. So we manufacture these tiny devices. What we started off that measure the swing. They go into or onto the handle end of a bat, which I'll pass around. So this little sensor goes right in here, twist, and then it's in. So this was my bat before it broke off, and now it's a handy demo tool. So I'll pass this around. Feel free to take it in and out. This tiny little sensor is what measures the swing. We'll get into that in just a second. And we've since launched the ball, so we have to be Internet of Swings and pitches. If somebody comes up with a really punny Internet of Pitches, let me know. I'll use it and I'll steal it. So I cut open a ball. We had a couple duds come from the factory on the first run, so I cut up a couple. So this one is an actual one. It's got the sensors inside, and you wouldn't be able to tell, so I cut it apart so you could. I got two of those to come around, which are pretty cool. I'll get some going on this side. We actually have clear plastics. If your bat does not come with an insert, we actually have little mounts and a little rubber band system that can mount this onto your bat, so you can have a little cavity to add your sensor to. So that is Diamond Kinetics. We've been a Pittsburgh startup since about 2014. At this point, we're working with a number of clients, MLB, NCAA, lots and lots of travel teams all over the United States, if you recognize any of those. Some of the youth organizations, and you probably recognize a couple of those, certainly a few here in Pittsburgh, at least Pony is here in Pittsburgh, in Washington. So, and as you can see from the equipment that I've brought, we're working with a couple equipment manufacturers, and they've actually modified their bats, both their wood bats and some of their composite and aluminum bats, to take our sensors. So we're being used. A lot of the data is getting collected all over the place, which is great to see. So we do have, at this point, millions and millions of swings, and we're getting into the big data scale. So we've had some attempts already, which I'll talk to you about. So this is the product set, the pitch tracker ball. I'm very pleased, very proud of. We're just about to launch the softball. So it is an entirely different throwing motion. If you guys haven't seen a softball, it's a sort of an underhand, much different than the pure overhand of baseball, but we track both motions. And we'll be launching that one in a little bit by November. So this is what we do. All of the sensor data that we have goes through an analysis of a physics engine on our mobile device. And this is my swing a couple years ago. It's improved a little bit, but we should have a video here. Whoops. And if you can manage to mouse over and click the play button, I thought I had that set up, but my apologies. So this will play through, and you'll see that as the swing animates, the video itself will stay synchronized. So you can see as my swing is progressing here. There we go. Wasn't as clean, but even on this freeze frame, we can see it sort of stays in lockstep. So we do a lot of accuracy testing to make sure that they will stay in lockstep, and we are reading the real world. But this is extremely useful for coaches, for players that are trying to get better. That's been our target market. So the pitch tracker ball, similarly, I would love to show off a demo of me throwing it. But it reads a lot. It reads velocity, it reads spin rate, it reads spin direction, it reads a lot of your timing information. Very interestingly, in the markets of baseball and softball, there's nothing presently that reads all of the pre-pitch motion that you have. Everything is post-release. This is the first tool available in the market that's going to get all of that pre-pitch motion data available for analysis. So while velocity for pitches is well understood as we get into the postseason for baseball. There's a lot of new stuff that's available. I'm looking forward to, we're talking a lot about velocity and break and horizontal and vertical break. Some spin direction then as well. So how does the ball spin through the air and how does it affect that horizontal and vertical break? We measure all of that, which is pretty cool, all in a $100 ball that our clients are very excited about buying and using. The closest competitor are a couple $100 if you're trying to get a radar gun. So this is a radar gun for just $100 that is just a ball. It has some onboard flash memory too, so you can just go out and throw and come back and you've got some pitches, which is pretty cool. So our tech stack, the ball, the sensor gets analyzed by the mobile apps who are iOS only presently, but all of that gets analyzed on board. Each swing goes through the analyzer. We're able to do full 3D recreation of both the swing and the pitch. We've got the swing shown here. All that data, of course, goes up to our cloud, which is accessible by our web client and our API. A lot of those partners that you saw listed on that first page are very interested in doing their own big data analysis on their own players on top of our API. The nice thing that we have access to all of that data and all of the trends that we've seen. So we're able to do a little bit more with all that data. So we'll talk about the data set that we have. This is what the sensor data looks like. This is one of my swings on the left. We have all sorts of sensors for accelerometers and gyroscopes and magnetometers that track all of this data. That's what it looks like. You can pretty clearly see where impact is there. And then the pitch over here on the right is kind of interesting. It's kind of hard to see, but you can actually see the free flight period is highlighted there. And there's some periodicity to I believe that is our accelerometer. So you can actually see the periodicity of spin, which is neat to see. So we have about 10,000 data points per swing or per pitch. About 10,000 data points a second. We sample about a second for each motion. We have millions of swings and pitches. So we've been very excited to get to the scale where we can start to do some interesting insight and to start to put this out in front of customers around what sort of insights would they be interested in. So this was one of our first attempts. Well, this is our current attempt. The trending data that we have here is interesting for nerds like me, but is less so interesting for people who are just trying to pick up a bat and say, how am I doing? Right, this is great. I can start to talk about separation between your fastball and your curveball, or your fastball and your changeup over here on the right for pitches. I can talk about how are we doing hand speed and bat speed on the left over there, all because I've been in the sport for a super long time. But that's not helpful for the mass market. So what we've been going after is making big data work for them. So what is the Clippy of our sport? How can we say, oh, hey, I see you're trying to get better at swinging. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So on top of our data, we're trying to give very concise answers to what the users are trying to get answered, right? So historical insights, any of these insights into how they've done in the past. Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? Are they in a slump, right? That's something that we can answer, and we can say, how did you compare previously when you weren't in a slump, and how can you get back there? Population insight. So I have a 65 mile an hour barrel speed. Is that good? Is it good for me? Is it good for middle-aged guys who are righty? I don't know, right? Like at 6'7", does that matter, right? So I can know that by age group, and does that age group, how do I compare to other people in my age group? Am I in the top 5% of my age group? Well, I might want to know that, because if I'm in the top 5%, I have a better chance of getting recruited into colleges. This third one is particularly interesting, this equipment insight. Actually, before I go on, this portion over here, this is actually some of the population data that we do have for one metric. It happens to be distance in the zone. Many of our metrics have this really nice population data bell curve looking shape to it, so we surface a lot of that in our app. And so that's how we're able to give the am I getting better ends up being an easy one, and then the are my numbers good? I can compare myself to others in my age group. And then the equipment insight is pretty good and sort of interesting too. So I can start to see users that I compare closely to, how do they do when they make bat bat changes? What happens when they change the length of their bat? What happens when they change the weight of their bat? If I start swinging other bats, so let's say I borrow a friend's bat and start swinging it, and I happen to know that it is lighter, my power numbers go up or my speed numbers go up, but my momentum goes down. These are things that we can surface and then offer as insights to the players to say, hey, now you might want to, or you've aged over the past couple of years and you've gotten a lot stronger, but we've seen your power numbers start to taper off. That's an opportunity to switch to a larger bat and make use of the bigger muscles as you've grown. We've seen that over the past 4 years, where we've seen players sort of plateau, change their bat, and then plateau again. Change their bat again, right? So that's all from growth and from the historical data that we've already seen. So that's pretty wild to see and to surface to players. And then categorization insights are particularly useful and interesting. So we haven't gotten into this yet at all, but this is something that we're looking forward to getting into. As we start to grow, we can separate all of our users out into different categories. Are you a power hitter? Are you a control hitter? What have players like you done? So if you were in the top 5%, where have you gone beyond? So if you, let's say I'm looking at a 14-year-old and he's a particularly good 14-year-old or she's a particularly good 15-year-old, I can then say, okay, players like you have then gone on to NCAA programs with this rate. And they have gone to those programs if they've gone to some of our partner programs. So to date, the things that we've surfaced are some of the things that I talked about there. And this bit here, we have a DK expert. So the other bit of insight that we've offered up to users is we've learned about we've done some small categorization about their swing. We have some drills offered up by experts in the field, some of whom you can see super tiny pictures over there, that are very well known in the fields of baseball and softball and strength and conditioning. And we can say, if your goal is to become a power hitter, I can see where your metrics are now. And we have learned that over time, people that take and do these drills improve their metrics in this way, closer to what you want to do towards an ideal. So it's a faster way, hopefully, or for the player that doesn't have ready access to a coach, an easy way to using their data and using what they've given us to get them on a path, hopefully, to improve a lot faster. So that's a lot of what we're doing here. And this is where we're at presently in the world of big data, is learning where they are presently and how we can help them grow to where they want to be. There's a lot that we are looking forward to do with our data, just in terms of the equipment data and equipment insights that we talked about there. And once we get into geographic and personal data, I can start to turn around and say to all of my players and all of my users, hey, if you are one of these top performing players and you're interested in getting recruited, here's a 10% off coupon to go to one of our partner organizations where this is a showcase and you can actually get seen by college coaches. And that is a way that people have historically gone to get recruited. So this is some of what we are planning to do on top of our data. So these are some of the things that are happening today and have been happening on top of some publicly available data inside of baseball and softball. So I'm super jazzed about a lot of the insights that the community has been able to surface and we're able to plug into then as well. This one is pretty awesome. This one is done by Alan Nathan. He's one of the advisors to Diamond Kinetics. If you guys are baseball and softball stats nerds, you'll know what BABIP is, but it's batting average, balls in play is across the top, and then home runs. So you can see the color here is sort of the corollary to BABIP here. The higher it is, the better. So you want to have a high BABIP. And there is a correlation, which is pretty strong here, between the launch angle of the ball and the batted ball speed. When this tweet first came out in 2015, this was not this wasn't much talked about. But with Alan Nathan's insights here, all we've talked about, if you saw the StatCast broadcast of any of the wild card games, they're pretty awesome. They talk a lot about ball velocity and exit velocity and launch angle, because that correlates highly to will you get, so these are all home runs over here, and anything in the red is probably a home run. But if you can stay in this donut, then you have a high degree or high probability of getting in play. So people are playing towards this donut, towards this insight. Again, this is an insight for me as a data nerd because I love it. But what it correlates to are the insights and the things that we can build on top of the Diamond Kinetics data, and how we can utilize this publicly available data to coach and teach and instruct players on better or more optimal swing paths. And this one is pretty interesting too. So this one is how the launch angle of the ball, and green is a hit and a black is an out. And we're talking about how good of a contact was made between the bat and the ball. And so the distance away is the exit velocity then as well. So you can see these balls are absolutely crushed over here. So one's sort of like a 2D view. But it's pretty awesome. I love looking at the data and I love pouring through it. And then how does that correlate all the way back to how do we teach about the swing, and how do we start to teach in the arms race between pitchers and batters, and when we're the arms dealer on both sides, how do we teach each side? I couldn't get out of here without showing my son and my daughter on some pretty fantastic swings of theirs. But that is it for me, I believe. There we go. We're also hiring. Do you guys have any questions on Diamond Kinetics, our data, what we do, or what we're able to do? Yeah. We are not. So we're staying in baseball and softball. We're considering, but we're not making any moves into other sports outside of baseball and softball. It's pretty well saturated in terms of other companies in the market right now. So there's things, if there's a sport you're thinking of, there's probably something already out there. Golf is out there for sure. That's a big one. Soccer, inflatables, I believe, as a category is held by somebody. So yeah, there are other entrants in other markets. We are IP exclusive to baseball and softball, and other corporate reasons for staying inside of baseball and softball. Plus, we just love baseball and softball. It helps us, actually, one of the things strategically that it's enabled us to do, we have the baseball and we have that softball, the actual physical baseball, which is back there, and the physical softball that we have here. We would probably not have been able to do that, and many of the other companies that are cross-sport have not gone to the level that we have inside of baseball and softball. That helps us competitively inside the market then too, right? So when we're able to say, we're the arms dealer for your sport, or we understand both sides of the equation here, or you get a complete package when you come with Diamond Kinetics, it's a different commercial and different strategy there. That's a good question. Other questions about baseball and softball? Who's played baseball and softball? Softball? Okay.
You said the ball was for pitching. Can you also hit that with the sensor inside of it?
We are working on being able to hit it. So some of the things that are amazing to me about my job, if I had asked you, or if you had asked me what my hypothesis was about why I couldn't hit this ball that has all these sensing electronic equipment inside of it, I would have said, it's going to break all the sensitive electronic equipment inside, clearly. Well, that ends up not being the case. It's actually the charging coil that comes all the way out to the outside that snaps, and then you can't charge it, so then you have a single-use ball. So we're working on ways of being able to allow the ball to be hit. It's not something that we're sort of super clamoring for right now. Everyone's very excited about that pitching data. We can grow into other position information. So the ball is really cool because it ends up being sort of the entire sport, right? Well, except for the hitting piece. But you're catching it. There's catcher framing. Are they framing that ball right into that strike zone? What is the catcher's pop time once they catch it and they're going to make a throw out to second base? If there are pickoff moves by the pitcher, how quick and accurate are those? What are throws like from the outfield all the way to the infield? How accurate are they? Should they be coming in direct, on a direct flight, or should they have a hop? There is actually an equation for that. Some folks have worked through that, and when should you have a hop and when should you throw on a direct flight? Depends on the distance and your velocity and sort of the release angle. So that's been kind of fun too. So you can't hit them yet. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you.